Right, so welcome to part 2 of our massive road trip in the MGZS EV. We're about to leave here. We're at the City Life Hotel in Wellington, which has a wonderful Delta charger sitting out in front of us right now. And we're going to drive to Mangawhai, about 750 kilometres away. Now, I've had a look at the route planners, and we're predicting about an 11.5-hour drive, including charging. And I think that's going to be pretty reliable. And we'll see how that goes. Now, we've had a play with both a Better Route Planner and the locally developed, and I really want to support it, Power Trip. And my finding so far with the two apps is that a Better Route Planner is probably the overall slicker app. It works really well. It works on CarPlay. You can plan both online and through the app, and you can get a premium subscription for a relatively affordable rate of about €5 a month, which includes a whole pile of live data. And I like a Better Route Planner, but I do find it is a little bit simplistic in the way it calculates its range. And over the trip that we've just done, I found that while it was probably picked the better route overall, it left a lot of variables in there in regards to how much range was left or how much margin was there. It needs some margin to work. Power Trip, on the other hand, is a heck of a lot more precise, and so as I've gotten more confident with this, I'm probably leaning more towards using Power Trip because it's far better at working out, I think, the fastest way to get from point A to point B, in that it is accounting for what you actually will arrive there with in a far more accurate way, and so forth. But I think you do, to get the most out of it, need to be relatively confident in the actual range your vehicle will do and how confident you are going a little bit low into the mileage ratings. You can set it to have bigger buffers in the same way that a Better Route Planner does, but I think once you're confident with your vehicle, Power Trip certainly is the way to go, and it has picked some of our distances on this, some of our consumption on this trip pretty darn close to right. So we'll head off now, and we've got 100% charge thanks to City Life, and the first charging stop, I believe, on both of them is going to be Bulls, though as I found yesterday, if I feel a little bit confident pushing that further, I may just do that, but we'll see how we go. So we've made it here to Taihape. We are some 230 kilometres from where we started in Wellington. I actually had read both the apps wrong. I thought we were going to Mangawhai, but we were pushing on that extra 20 kilometres through to Taihape, which is good at the end of the day, because I guess it means that that's just a little bit further distance we're not going to need further on. So got a couple of things to do here. I'm going to plug in and get a nice charge. I think we'll be here for a little while, and I am going to pop over to the New World and get some snacks. And then we're going, but first I'm going to change out of these stuffy business clothes because I've got a long drive ahead. So by the magic of television, much better. That's a little more comfortable. Right, so I've done what I need to do. We're still just ticking over on the charging, but we're not too far off. I think we're going to be here for about 35 minutes all up in the end. And the route planners are again in disagreement as to which way we go and where we look. Power Trip, I, to be honest, can't actually get a route out of at the moment. It doesn't think we can make it, so I think there's a little bit of a bug going on there. A Better Route Planner has given us a couple of options. The one I'm going to take is back straight down State Highway 1 with a very short, it's just about 8-minute charge at Turangi, and then a charge at Tira, I always seem to nip at T-Rail for some reason. I'm not sure. I'm going to keep an eye on things and decide if I really need that charge at Turangi. But T-Rail will be a great place to stop. But I'm guessing in about it'll be about 7:30 tonight. So I'm going to grab a bite, and we'll see how we go in getting there. And I guess you'll see whether I stop in Turangi and talk to you again, or whether it's T-Rail by the time we're all ready to chat away again. So let's get on the road. Right, now I've pulled the plug after about 35 minutes of charging, and the reason for that is that we've got enough technically to get to T-Rail, though I think the planner is right, and we probably need a little more to actually do the job comfortably. But I guess the point is that we were starting to slow down our charging. We dropped down to about 32 kilowatt, and so it really is time to move on. The planners decided to take that 9-minute stop in Turangi because it's about return on investment. So sitting here, we're getting 30 something. If we go to Turangi, just stop for that 9 minutes, we'll be charging at 45, 46, 47, 48. So getting a lot more for our time. So let's get on the road. Right, we're here at Turangi on the charger. Now, a better route planner told me to charge here for about 8 minutes, but we're actually I've gone a little bit further, because by the time I've been to the bathroom, I got some window wipes, cleaned the screen, got a coffee, all that kind of stuff. It was 15 odd minutes, it's just knocking on 20, and that's just going to give us a heck of a lot more charge to play with later down the track. Let's get on the road. We'll aim for T-Rail, but I may see if we can go a little bit further. I want to talk about MG Pilot. Now, MG Pilot has quite an impressive name, and I'm sure quite impressive intentions. Now, so MG Pilot is MG's driver assistance system, or ADAS as they call it these days. The systems that are wrapped into the MG Pilot are things like the adaptive cruise control, lane keeping, emergency braking, various other warning systems and so forth. And for the most part, they're really good. I've been a little bit critical of these kind of systems and other kind of new market cars coming through before for not being particularly well tuned in comparison to, say, the BMW system or Volvo system or Mercedes-Benz system. Now, I'm going to say the same thing about the MG thing. It isn't perfect yet, but it's actually really good. It does a really good job of keeping the car centered in the lane. The adaptive cruise control does a fairly good job of marking behind the car in front, and so forth. It's not perfect on center when you're running MG Pilot and you're holding the steering wheel. You do have to have, this isn't really a fault, quite a firm grasp to stop it from suggesting that you need to be holding on to the steering wheel more firmly. And it does make the steering on center feel a little bit light and just doesn't seem to, on a straight motorway, it just feels a bit light because you're kind of in the gap between where it's forcing you to drive. But overall, it does the job. And that job is just taking just that little bit of load off the driver when they're driving. Sure, it's a safety feature, but also it just takes that little bit of load off the driver when you're doing really long distances like this. And I think that's why I've been able to sit in this car for hours and hours and hours on end over the last 2-3 days and still be relatively refreshed, relatively relaxed, in a way that cars that don't have the system are probably just that little bit more fatiguing. And sure, it works better on the big motorways in the cities where the lanes are a little better defined and so forth. But here on your kind of two-way State Highway 1 stretch, it's doing the job quite adequately. I won't, but I could take my hands off the wheel here, and for about 10-15 seconds, it would quite happily drive the car down the road. One thing I like that some cars don't do is it's quite happy to do all the steering stuff while you're still using the throttle yourself. One of the reasons that's important is because a little bit of a flaw in this setup is that the adaptive cruise control will not use regeneration to slow the car down. It will use brakes, which makes it a little bit inefficient, particularly if you're on up and down country. If you're out on a motorway that's relatively flat, it's not really going to be a big problem. But up and down hill roads and so forth, it is going to give you that little bit of loss of potential energy recoupment. But overall, MG Pilot, it's pretty darn good, and while it's not perfect, it does what it's supposed to do. It takes that load off, and that's really key. Right, let's keep going on our way to T-Rail or beyond.
Baby, don't throw just like me to mess up a good thing. Another night ruined, I don't even know when we became this way. Now you're acting so different than back when we had it easy. Now you don't believe me when I say I'll change. But how can I lose you now? Oh, the silence are way too loud. Yeah, 'cause I won't be okay without you every day. Baby, don't run away. Baby, don't throw our love away. Baby, don't throw our love away. Baby, don't throw our love away. Away, yeah. Away, yeah. Away, yeah. Baby, don't throw our love away. Just like me, still instigating things.
Right, so we are back in T-Rail, which is where we had our second charging stop on the way down, and we arrived here with still around 20 odd percent in the battery. A better route planner is suggesting we only charged about 61%. We're sitting at about 37 now, and they're suggesting that should take about 22 minutes. I think that's probably going to be about right, maybe a little bit more. Now we're only about 260k from home now, so really after this, with this charge and the next one, we're talking relatively short charges. There's no more need to spend 40 minutes like we did yesterday charging to full, and that I think is a really good way to travel on this. Basically for us it means drives of about an hour and a half, and then about 25 minutes on a charger, and then off again. So that to me is kind of like the perfect set of timings. So we've made it back to Bombay. We got in here with plenty of range to run, about 50 odd kilometres left on the guessometer. And it's interesting, I had a bit of thought, we didn't get a great speed out of the hypercharger here on my way down, and what I suspect that may have had to do is that we actually had a relatively relaxed drive in here on the first night, just because there was some traffic and some roadworks further down, and just we weren't pushing it, and so it kind of ramped up to 55 and then drifted down really quickly. I've got a time lapse on at the moment, and we pretty much immediately ramped up to 72 kilowatts of speed on the charger, which is great. That means we're charging it 30-40% faster than what we would be on a 50 kilowatt unit, which makes it worthwhile stopping here rather than stopping maybe a little bit further into Auckland for the trip north. So we shouldn't be here too long, I think, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then off on the last stint of about 130-140 kilometres up to home. When we get there, I'm going to go straight to bed, but I'll wrap this up in the morning. But just to report, car still running absolutely fine, not an issue I can see. I'm still running absolutely fine. I can't repeat enough times how relaxing and easy this thing is to drive over long distances, and just how effortless this kind of travel is. So I will. You can watch the camera as we go through on the rest of the trip, and I'll talk to you in the morning about a little bit of a wrap up on what the trip's been like. Okay, let's wrap this up. How was the trip? I think a fantastic success. I think we answered the question perfectly well. EVs can do business travel and do business trips as well, if not I'd argue better than petrol cars or diesel vehicles. I mean, why better? I mean, for a start, I think the electric vehicle is more relaxing to drive, and I generally arriving fresher than I think in a petrol or diesel car. I don't know why. I just think less vibration, less noise, the quietness. It's subjective, but hey, that's my opinion on it. Now, in regards to cost, I do think that you've got a definite advantage in the EV. I went and checked our charging account, and took us $101 of DC fast charging to get to Wellington and back from Northland. Now, I didn't include the hotel charging cost because they didn't charge us anything extra on top of what the room rates were, and they weren't expensive hotels. So I think that's a really nice bonus to look out for when you're booking vehicles on your trip, hotels on your trip. What would it cost in a petrol car? I did the numbers on our car, and at a minimum, about $230. I actually think closer to $300. So you've got a $130 to $200 saving there. And that adds up if you're traveling regularly. So for all you business travelers out there, relax. You can now go out and swap your petrol or diesel road warrior for an electric car. It is massively beneficial both from a well-being and a financial standpoint, and of course getting rid of that additional carbon that you're using by burning petrol. So thanks for enjoying the video, or watching the video at least. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment below. I think on the last video someone was commenting on my colourful shirt. Whatever, as long as you engage, and we'll be back soon enough with more great content from EVs and beyond.